This is Brett Snodgrass for the Brett Snodgrass podcast. Thank you guys for joining me today. Go over to YouTube and subscribe to the Brett Snodgrass channel. Really appreciate you guys. Love all of you and that are following us, and thank you guys so much. I got a great couple on the podcast with me today. I have Robert and Kay Lee Fukui out of California, and they run a consulting and coaching program called Power Couples by Design. So Robert was in corporate America, sales, and ran his own businesses. And Kay Lee grew up in an entrepreneurial home, and her dad wasn't always there, that she describes. So they are on a mission to work with couples where one of them owns their own business and help them have a healthy balance of family and business, and they help couples navigate those dangerous waters. So I know that I've had some struggles with that. I'm sure that you have too as well if you're a business owner. So today they're going to be talking to us about family balance and business balance and how to have healthy in both. So now I want to introduce you to Robert and Kay Lee Fukui. What's going on, guys?
Hey, it's great to see you. Long time no see.
I know. I got interviewed on your podcast. So
yeah, it's great. So this is a love fest right now.
That's right. We're having a bromance. So anyways, well, thanks you guys for being on the podcast today. Really appreciate it. Excited. I'm always excited to have couples on. We usually do one at a time, but always just really interesting to hear a husband and wife and their share. And you guys run coaching and consulting called Power Couples by Design that we're going to really dive into. And you guys coach and consult couples that are in business and how to navigate balance and business, family. And is that a problem, Robert?
There must be, because people are coming to us.
You get paid for it.
Yeah, we get paid for it too. Yeah, exactly. It is a problem. It's a good problem to have, I guess, for us. It's a job security, but no, but the marriage and business and family part is not a problem. It's just how we handle it. Right?
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I always like to start off with a question. I ask who you are, and I always, maybe this is a little bit different, but I'm going to ask you, start off with Kay Lee. Kay Lee, so who is Robert Fukui?
Yeah, who is me?
I'm trying to figure that out myself, Brett,
16 years later.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I think a lot of people think he is an extrovert, but he would tell you he's an introvert. He is great at developing people. I'm like, honey, you got to help me in some different areas because he helps so many other people. He is very intentional about kind of being in the background and allowing other people to shine and to making them look good. That's one of the many things that you are good at, I would say.
Wow.
Oh, thanks, honey.
You're welcome.
That shows your humility. So that's good. I like you.
Yeah, I'm the most humble. I'm the most humble person I know.
Right? No, that's awesome. I agree. For the few conversations we have with you, Robert, just kind of speak volumes of your humility. And I know you're leading groups, you're shepherding communities, masterminds, and coaching and consulting people, and you're always just trying to impact people. So that's awesome. So I'm gonna turn it around now, Robert. So, come on, man. Who is Kay Lee Fukui?
Kay Lee's a big encourager. Right? She's my cheerleader. Just encourage her, and she does that for other people. I just have to, the part of me developing her is help her encourage herself because she's her worst critic sometimes. And I'm like, honey, if you were encouraging, if you were a friend, your own friend, what would you say to yourself? Right. But no, she's a great encourager. She's one of those people that can make friends. Like, we'll be in Starbucks, and by the time I just want to get my order and get my coffee and go, right? And she will make friends, and we're invited to dinner at some stranger's house by the time I pick up my latte at the counter. And so, but it's a great gift. And people just tell her stuff. I mean, strangers would just tell her the life story and more than you want to know sometimes.
He's like, do you know them?
Yeah,
I'm like, no, I just met him right now. I know the whole life story.
You come into the middle of this conversation, I got my latte, come into the middle of this conversation, and then they're talking about their, some tragedy or some, divorce or, just stuff, right? I mean, not just here's my name, and that, I mean, this is like deep stuff. And
They're
I'm
like
like
crying on her shoulder. And...
yeah. And I was like, who is that? So I remember early
that's
on
John.
when
He just gave us our latte, right? We're
yeah,
having
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So,
You understand, Brett?
So I remember, when I first started consulting and I was leaving my corporate job, I started consulting, she would ask me like, oh, what can I do? How can I help? And I said, just go make friends. Mm. And she's like, what? I go, yeah, just go make friends. I mean, I said, that's the layman's term saying go network. Right. But she just has this gift of just, turning a stranger into a best friend. And I think that's something that she really adds to our business, but just into my life. But she's a great encourager.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because obviously the book, How to Make Friends and Influence People, as even with my teen daughter, I'm like, man, like, what's the first book I would want you to read and like to learn about business or entrepreneurship or whatever? And it's always that book. And so I think that's just a huge thing to get people to, not to swindle them, but just to have them like you, to be relatable, to listen to them.
Yeah.
And that's just a huge quality. So awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, you guys sound like an awesome power couple. So
we try.
We do our best.
That's amazing. Well, Kay Lee, I'm going to ask you another, just kind of a deeper question. So you guys mentor couples, and especially couples in business. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, but I want to know about your home, like your marriage, your relationship. What does it look like inside of Robert and Kay Lee's house? What's that look and feel like?
Well, I'll give you an interesting story this weekend. I'll be really vulnerable with you. So we are needing to get a new comforter for our bedroom, but I've been putting it off for quite a while because Robert likes to be involved in all the decision making, which a lot of spouses, well, no, not all, but a lot of spouses are like, oh, I don't want to be, the husband doesn't want to be involved. He just sends the wife to go buy whatever she wants. Mm-hmm. But he wants to be involved. So I was putting it off because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we got to be able to decide on the same thing. What if there's conflict? He's probably going to like something different than I do. I don't know if I really want to deal with this right now. So we ended up going shopping. I'm like, okay, I just have to do this. And I realized it was a lie that I'd been believing all this time, that we couldn't be on the same page and it was going to be a lot of work and it was going to be stressful and I didn't want to have conflict. And it made me think of, oh my gosh, we're writing a book, all these other huge things we're doing for our business that we don't think twice about doing that and making a decision, but it's something as small as a comforter, I don't want to have conflict over. And it made me realize it's kind of sad that this has held me back believing this lie for long as it has been.
Wow.
So I'm happy to say we got the comforter. The bedroom looks good. It didn't take much effort at all to find something we both liked. And so it turned out nice.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is, that you guys can do these like big things, write a book together, but some of the smaller details? Robert, do you have any take on that, or?
Well, when it comes to the business side of things, I think there's probably less emotions attached to it. And then I think when you talk about the little things that get hard and talk about the comforter, it's more the intimate details, and sometimes we don't maybe put as much. We put too much more thought into the little things than we do some of the bigger things. I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with emotional attachment to those decisions. Yeah. And so when it comes to business, it's a little easier. Like even helping somebody else see, create the right business strategy and approach to what they do. It's easier for me to do that for them than it is for our own business.
For yourself, yeah.
So we get caught up in the minutia, the details that probably don't need to be dealt with.
And you're telling John, who just cried on Kay Lee's shoulder, you're like, don't worry about the minutia. Just draw out the vision.
Exactly.
No, that's and I think like the book too, there's like a deadline. We're trying to move this forward. We need to keep things moving. The comforter, we didn't have a deadline. We're just like, we need to do it, but there's no end date in mind.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Well, thanks you guys for just kind of opening up about that. And just, I want to talk to you about vision, because you guys work with power couples, and these couples typically are in business, possibly together, or maybe one's more entrenched in the business than the other. But I know for me personally, I'm a visionary. So I like vision. I like ideas. I don't execute very well on those ideas, but I have a lot of them. And my wife, she's more detailed and she helps me execute on these ideas. But it's always been hard for us to kind of draw out this vision together. Brett has his ideas and vision, and it's all out there, sometimes all over the place. And then she has a vision, but it's just different. And it's been hard for us, again, to maybe get our visions on the same page. So is this where you guys kind of start with power couples? Just kind of start with getting their visions, and take us through a little bit of that process.
Well, this is a fun process. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. That is exactly where we started, regardless if they're working in the business or not. It's about, what is your family vision? What does your marriage vision look like? What's your short-term and long-term goals? What does your best life look like? And yeah, there's going to be some differences as far as what each of them want to achieve in their personal life, but there's also commonalities, right? And even in some of the commonalities, there might be some differences. Like, say, retirement. Like, we don't believe in retirement like do nothing. But as you get older, you're going to scale back in how much work you're doing. But where do you want to live long term? Mm-hmm. So we know we want the commonalities might be, we want a more peaceful place, maybe out of the city or things like that. But then the differences might come into forest, mountain or beach. So that's where the differences come in, and you have to kind of work through. But definitely start with, what's on the common vision, and then what are the differences between the two of you. But then how do you just problem solve, just brainstorm, how do you make this thing work? Right?
Dream together. How you can bring it all together. Like, he can have what he likes, she can have what she likes, and it might look completely different than what you're thinking. But then when you bring it together, that's the fun. And then you can both buy in together, and it's something to look forward to, and write it down and look over it through the years. And you have something in common of where you want to go.
Yeah. Like, even for us, we talked about, we've been having this conversation about long-term, where we want to live, and that, moving out of California, it's hard because the weather's so great year round, right, in Southern California. So if we move out of the state, where would we really want to live? And we're talking about weather issues and stuff. And so, we talked about moving somewhere in like the southeast coast, like North Carolina, South Carolina, something like that. But then we're like, well, what about the summertime? It gets so hot and humid, and we're not used to humidity here in Southern California. We go, well, we can always, like, either you get a second home in the mountains somewhere, like in Colorado, because I like to ski and she likes the beach. And so we can either have a second home in the mountains, or we can maybe just rent a place, just get out of town in the summertime and just go rent someplace. Right. So it's things like that maybe there's not that one perfect solution, but you can come up with a solution.
Yeah.
So things like that, just brainstorm through the process.
Yeah.
Instead of getting stuck of, no, I want to be in the beach, I want to be in the mountains, but how can you get the best of both worlds?
Yeah.
And there's always a possibility. You just have to kind of get creative.
Yeah. Do you guys find that couples, one of the biggest things is just finding the time to get in the right environment to do these sorts of things? Because it seems like, Karen and I been married almost 10 years, and we'll do our date nights, but a lot of times we just want to have fun. We just want to just laugh, or just not to think too deeply about certain things during those specific nights. So is that one of the challenges? Is just couples, they just don't take the time to get in that mode, in that environment, and then it just kind of just drifts on, and they just don't talk about it.
Pretty much. You answer your own question.
Yeah.
So when it comes to vision planning, or just, on the personal side of things, you really do have to kind of treat it like a business. It sounds bad, but you've got to be intentional about planning.
Because it just doesn't happen on its own. At least with us, it doesn't.
Yeah. So like in business, you're going to set time aside to do some planning, right? Either in your office, and then work with a team and all that. And you set up times and appointments for these meetings. And so just like in marriage, you got to do the same thing. Yeah. You don't want to have business meeting while you're having your date night and your dinner, for sure. So you have dedicated time away just to talk about the business aspect of your life. like your vision planning and your future and stuff. So you just have to be intentional, just set aside the time, put it on the calendar. I mean, that's all. It's as simple or as hard as that, right?
Yeah.
It's just, you just got to do it.
We have our weekly meeting every Monday at 3:00. So
now
we know we can talk about that stuff.
Yeah. In that weekly meeting, I mean, you guys are obviously and you guys talk to a lot of couples in business together, but in those weekly meetings, is it mostly business, or do you talk about your dreams beyond business as well?
Yeah, it's all that. We have kind of a schedule
Okay.
in the meeting. And the first
My husband's got it on Google Docs, you guys.
There you go. Let's share it away.
So she knows the agenda every week. But we start off with kind of, I guess, a word of affirmation, I guess you want to call it, but it's really praising each other. That's how we start.
Oh,
nice. Is really praising each other. And it's great for me because I'm terrible at it. She's good. I said earlier, she's an encourager. And so she does that well. I'm terrible at it. So it's good to have it on the calendar.
How can you be, Robert, how can you be terrible at praising somebody?
It just doesn't come out of my mouth. I might think it. It just doesn't come out of my mouth.
I know.
You've gotten a lot better, I have to say.
Yeah. And it helps to have at least once a week it's scheduled, man.
He has a whole week to think about it, Brett. What is he going to say?
I don't want to say the same thing last week. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, you got to be intentional. So, some people are better at it than others. Like I said, Kay Lee's good at it. I'm not. So I have to really be that much more intentional about it. So that's why it's also the top number one topic on our weekly meetings is that.
Yeah.
And it's just nice.
And I
anyway
think it's really important for women. I can't speak for men. I'm sure they love it too, but sometimes that's what gets you through. That encouraging word will get you through the whole week.
I know.
So it means a lot.
Yeah, it does. Especially
and I can
from
expect
your spouse. Just because, again, we get into the rut of not praising each other, taking each other for granted, just kind of passing each other, and we think it, but yeah, we don't say it, and then
exactly,
and then we just get in that rut. But it's just something about coming from your spouse rather than others. Like there's certain people that can say the exact same thing, but it comes from your spouse. It just means that much more.
Right.
Kay Lee, talk about Power Couples by Design. You guys coach consultant couples, 30,000-foot view. Like, what do you guys typically do? So like you guys have a process. You talked about vision already. So you meet with a couple, talk about their vision, but like, what are the types of couples that you're meeting with, and tell us a little bit about the process.
Okay. So some of them are like me. I come from an entrepreneur family, third generation, and my dad worked 6 days a week. So he was never home. So in our household, the business was the mistress. So it was really challenging on our family. And so we try and help people process through having a healthy balance of work, time, and balance. And we also help them. Robert goes through all their financials and looks at different areas. We're checking out the margin to make sure that they are able to be sustainable and making a good living, because it's okay to make a living. I want to tell people, and to be able to support your family.
Yeah, it's just the whole approach of, the business. Most business owners start their business for the potential freedom, additional freedom, work schedule flexibility, and all that. And next thing you know, they're more enslaved to the business, and the business running them than them running the business. And so that's where the imbalance in their life comes into play. And so we're really trying to help them bring things in balance and keep the priorities a priority, right? Like for us and the three of us, right? Faith, family, and then finance or your business. So how do you bring everything back into alignment, into more better balance? And so helping them, that's where the vision comes in. Talked about, that's why we have to start with the vision, is what does your best life look like? And how does the business fit in, as opposed to how is your life fitting into the business? Right. And that's usually what happens. And because there's a lack of planning and intention on building up the business and the family at the same time, things just happen.
Yeah.
And the imbalance just happens because it just happens. And so now we got to go through the process of planning it out, and even restructuring the business so that they have more margin of time and money. Money for the business to grow, but more margin of time for the owner to be able to invest back into the relationships that matter most.
Yeah. No, so it's funny. Right before this podcast, I was talking to a gentleman, and he's actually from California. He's a good friend of mine, and he was in Cleveland. He's a teacher by trade, but he was in Cleveland working on a rental house because he can't find good contractors to work on these houses. So he flies out from California to Cleveland to work on these houses for a week or 2 weeks at a time. And they just had a new baby. They have 4 kids, and his wife just left her nursing career, and you know, that was the thing. He's like, I can't keep doing this. This is like, I got my family at home, but I'm trying to, but then at the same time, he was negotiating on 2 more rental properties in Cleveland, trying to build that up, trying to get more freedom. But yeah, my response was take a step back. Like, if you buy those 2 other properties, you're going to in that same situation, then 2 more. And then it's just like, I don't know. So I found him in that. Maybe I'll introduce you guys. That was just kind of an interesting thing. Like, he's doing it for freedom, but he's just, he can't keep doing that.
He's slave to the business.
Yeah. You mentioned that just kind of digging into the business. So Robert, you dig into the actual financials, because a lot of times people might see Power Couples by Design. They might think of, a marriage counselor, help with communication between the business, the man and the wife, the husband and the wife, and that's what you guys kind of do. But you guys do a lot deeper, a lot more than that. So can you dive into that? You really dive into the business as well to see how, if it's even healthy. Is that right?
Yeah, we do talk about address conflict resolution, communication in marriage for sure. And that's why a lot of people look at us as like almost like marriage counselors, and they're looking at us as so we're like, we delve into some of that, but that's not our total sweet spot. We care about the relationship because that's most important. So we want to deal with that. But we're more business consultants. And so what we're looking at, like I said earlier, what's creating the imbalance kind of starts with the business too, is that there's so much, the business owner is so slave to the business that there's no more time left, or there's very little time left to the family. And so you can help them all you want with communication, conflict resolution, and all that. But if the business isn't healthy and is still robbing time away from the family more than they want, that it still creates conflict. There's still that thing that's there. And so we have to be able to address that as well. And so, we're more business consultants first, but our goal with the business and helping the business is really so that they have better balance in their life. And so it's really to help strengthen the marriage, but we address the business. So yeah, the first thing we look at is where's the inefficiencies in the business? There's no matter what kind of business is, and I've worked in Fortune 500, there's no perfect business, and there's always room for improvement. And so, and even in smaller business, there's even more so, there's always a lot of room for improvement, not just from a sales and marketing standpoint, which is my background, but really just from an efficiency standpoint. Most small businesses are run very inefficiently because the owner is gifted at their skill, whether it's a chef, a mechanic, or contractor, or accountant, or whatever, you name it, but they're not so much gifted in all aspects of running a business, operating a business. And so just inherently, there just becomes some inefficiencies as they're growing because they're just responding. Right. And so,
and wearing all these different hats.
Yeah. So we just do a full kind of assessment of the business. From the first thing we look at is their financials, because there's a dollar sign connected to every aspect of your business. And so I can pretty much tell what's going on in the business just by looking at their P&L and their balance sheets.
Yeah.
And that's, which is ironic because I hated accounting in college. But now I spend my time looking at spreadsheets and P&Ls, and I'm like, where'd this come from?
And sometimes it doesn't take very much, just a small little change to turn things around.
Yeah. No.
So it's interesting that even my background's in marketing, but I developed my marketing strategy for the business based on their financials.
No, that's really interesting. And yeah, if you really just dig down into just each area of your business, there's so many inefficiencies. And as business owners, we know, like, oh my gosh, we look at our business and we're our biggest critic. We're like, we have so many holes. It's just trying to fill all these. And it could be money, it could be time. And the inefficiencies, like, again, this gentleman that I just talked about from California flying over to Cleveland because he couldn't find help. My response was, well, like, if I had a house that bad, I couldn't find help, I would just sell the house. Like, there's no way I would leave my family for 2-3 weeks at a time and go fix up this house. I don't know. That's just me. But But yeah, so you guys dive into inefficiencies with the business, and that obviously strengthens the relationship. And Kay Lee, why don't you talk about this? Is this only for couples? So you guys are obviously in business together. And do you guys only coach and consult couples that are in business together, like they're both in the business? Or could it also be just one person's in the business, the other person has a job or stays at home? What
Well, we
about that?
kind of look at it a little differently. Being that you guys have your real estate business, you might be the face of it, the CFO, CEO,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also married. So we look at it as it's your business
Mm-hmm.
because your spouse is contributing in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
You know,
Even if
whether
they're
it's
not
stay-at-home
working. Yeah.
mom, they're still involved.
Mm-hmm.
Might not be the day-to-day. So we see it as the both of you. And then some of them also have separate businesses, couples. You know, she's got her entrepreneur business over here and he's got a totally completely different one. So we help them as well.
So yeah, they're either working in the business or not. It's both.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So what's Robert, what's some of the most common challenges? We talk about inefficiencies in the business, just kind of like plugging those holes, getting together with your spouse and drawing out the vision. What are some of the other common challenges that people come to you with?
Well, I mean, the common challenge is just the fact that they recognize that they don't know how to define work-life balance, but they know they don't have it. They just know their life is a little out of control.
Right.
And they know their business is a big part of that. And so they come to us for that. And sometimes if the husband and wife are working together, there's a teamwork dynamic that they come to us for. So there's a work-life balance issue, and then there's a teamwork issue if they're working as a husband and wife team. But the most common challenge, the most common issue that affects the business, they might not know it, but it's the leader themselves. The inefficiencies really kind of start from the top, right? And so they there's a host of reasons. There, one, just the fact of working really hard and the business is the mistress. A lot of it is the inefficiencies of the business, but it's also what the owner allows the business to dictate in their life. A lot of times they just don't have, just starting with proper boundaries, right? Even before addressing inefficiencies, we talk about setting some healthy boundaries between business and home. Even if they can say all they want on how busy they are and they don't have time for the date nights or for the kids or whatever, you have some time, right? At some time you go home. And even if you work from home, I mean, at some point you do turn it off. I mean, and you'll have dinner or something. There's always personal time you do have. So let's look at that. And let's make sure that you create healthy boundaries so that when you do technically are supposed to be off the clock, that you're not constantly thinking about business, looking at your text messages, your emails, even on social media, maybe watching TV. You're not getting distracted by other things when you're supposed to be off the clock. So the time you do have, you can be present, right? Because sometimes they can be present physically with their spouse and with their kids, but they're not present mentally and emotionally because they're checked out. They're thinking about other things. They're thinking about business issues and all that. So that's the first part we start with is you have time. You're just not using it very well. Right? Yes. And so the first thing is focus your attention on your spouse and your kids when you're off the clock with the time, little time you have. And then what are the things, we said that even on when we interviewed you about the hardest thing for the entrepreneur to say is no. And so they keep saying yes to things and it just fills up their calendar. And a lot of things they're saying yes to are just not productive things for the business.
Right.
And so you really have to start to determine what is getting in the way. What are just some of the things that are just distractions? What are things that are just busy work for the business that you just need to let go of, either temporarily or forever? What are things that could be delegated? I mean, going through the calendar and all the activities and figure out how to kind of weed some of this stuff out to be able to get more margin of time to then be more efficient as a leader in the business and then also at home.
Exactly. Kay Lee, I have a quick question for you. So I was interviewing a gentleman. This was a billionaire. I got him on the podcast. He was at a mastermind group, and I met him. Jeff Hoffman. He was one of the founders of Priceline.com, and I asked him about work-life balance, and he said that balance is a myth. So, what do you say to that? I mean, obviously, he's a very high performer, and a lot of billionaires struggle with their personal relationships, but what do you say to that? Just that comment, the balance, work-life balance, if you want to be the gold medalist, is a myth.
I say do the best you can. If you need to be intentional about where you want to spend the time, yes, that's not going to be perfect. It can change every day, but if you try and be intentional about what things are important to you, I think it's more likely that if you have that goal, that you'll be able to move in that direction, as opposed to just saying yes to everything and not being intentional, not being present. So I think we all can do our best by being intentional about what's important to us and what we want out of life.
And balance, I think the reason why people struggle with that term, because there's not a good definition about what work-life balance is.
Or what it looks like.
And so I think the start is to simplify things is work-life balance is not based on quantity of time or measuring quantity of time. It's based on quality of time. Because we think of balance, we think of the scale, right? And then we think naturally is we want to have even amount of time in work and even amount of time at home, which that's probably impossible, at least, in early stages of your business. But it's really about quality of time. And then also define that as husband and wife. That's part of the vision planning is what does work-life balance mean to you between husband and wife? What does that look like? How do you get quality time with your spouse as well as at work? How do we, again, it's all about efficiencies. How do we spend really quality, productive time at work? And then also, how do we spend quality, productive time at home? Just even what I said earlier about you do have some time at home, make it count.
Well, and we talk about this stuff at our weekly meetings. We go over our schedule. Robert will be like, okay, this is going to be a really heavy week. I have a lot going on. So I'll be, okay, I can prepare myself. I know what to expect. And then he'll be like, so the following weekend, my schedule's a little bit lighter. Let's make up for that. And we'll go to the beach Monday, or we'll plan a nice dinner or a picnic. But we talk about that stuff ahead of time. So I'm not caught off guard. And when I'm like, oh my gosh, you're always working. You put work before me. Don't you love me anymore?
Right.
So we talk about it and we plan it into the schedule. And so we know what to expect. And then we try to add in fun in other places.
Yeah, there's going to be ebbs and flows, right? In your work schedule, your workload and all that. But as Kaylee's saying, I think that constant communication, that in itself creates a sense of balance because we know what to expect.
Yeah.
But if you're just going through life and just taking it as it comes, that's when things feel out of balance because you don't, your spouse may not know what to expect because we haven't talked about what what projects coming up that you have to put more time into or a business trip or whatever. But having just that constant communication so you can work things out and you know what to expect. And then, if there's a period that is going to create more work for you, then what do we do on the back end? Or even in the midst of that, what can we do even in the midst of a busy schedule that we can make sure we carve out a little bit of time for each other, right? Just kind of that whole, just the communication and talking and planning these things out. That in itself creates more of a sense of balance between the two.
Right. Because
we just know what's going on.
Page. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Page,
we just know what's
vision.
going on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you just get to know each other a little bit better. I mean, my wife might not know my vision or what I want sometimes, and I don't know exactly what she wants. So just even that brings that healthy balance. And you talk about just intentionality. I think we even mentioned that on your show. Just being intentional. A lot of times as business owners, we're very intentional about our business, strategic planning, vision. But when it comes to our personal life, we don't have a vision. We don't know what to do with our kids or how to raise them and all the stuff that involves with all that, or our wives. So
yeah, exactly.
So awesome. Any resources? So as we kind of wrap up the show here, Kay Lee, I know your website's filled with just resources that you guys have. You guys are in the process of writing a book. Where could someone go just to get resources that you guys have available? And is there one thing that they should really get to start off with?
Well, our website is highpointmarketing.com. And we have all kinds of free resources on there. So please go help yourself. We got e-courses. We have our podcast on there as well. We just had the former founder, president of Starbucks on. So that was a really fun.
Wow. That's awesome.
Episode.
Yeah. And there's a free guide we just put out there too. And there's a link I think I gave Roxanne, but there's a free guide for better balance.
Yeah. So please take it.
It's just the same process we take all of our clients through, and it's in a little ebook or workbook.
Awesome. We're going to put that in our show notes too on our YouTube channel, guys. So check out the description on the Brett Snodgrass channel on YouTube. So we will put that in there. Robert, Kay Lee, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. Really appreciate you. And
thanks for having us.
I like to end every podcast with a couple of questions. I forgot about these, but
he hid those from us.
I hid those. Yeah, these are off the cuff. But is there, so obviously you guys have resources for couples, but is there any other resource or website or tool that couples could use besides the one you mentioned?
Specifically on our site?
Or no, just off your site.
Just in general.
Yeah, just in general.
Just in general. Well, there's one of our clients, they're marriage and family therapists, and then they have what's called the Core Values Index. And they think if you just Google it, because it's not their proprietary thing, but it's something it's a tool they use. But the Core Values Index gives a really good snapshot of, it's not really just a snapshot. I mean, it's really in depth about how you and your spouse think and act and what matters to you most. Yeah. And it really gives kind of insight into similarities and differences and what potentially causes conflict between the two of you as relationally. But I think it's a really good tool to use to get to know yourself, but also get to know your spouse.
Yeah. Awesome.
What makes you tick.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. Last one. Best book recently read. Kay Lee, have you read any good books lately?
Oh gosh, I'm always reading. I do a lot of reading. What is one of my favorite books? I just finished the book on habits and how to start new habits and break old habits. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's not coming to my mind at the moment, but it was really good.
Is that Atomic Habits?
Yes, that was it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Atomic Habits.
Yeah, that is a good one. Awesome. Atomic Habits, very good. Yeah, just start kind of small, and I love that book because they develop just good rhythmic habits. Like if you want to do a bunch of push-ups, just start with a push-up. So
No. He starts with, if you want to go to the gym, just put your shoes on. And then the next day you put your shoes on and then you go out the door. And then the next day you put your shoes on, go out the door, and you go to the gym for 5 minutes and then you leave. And I know where he's going, because if I get all the way to the gym, I'm not staying for 5 minutes.
Right. That's good. Awesome. Robert, you read any good books?
I'll do a cop out because just the last book I read, because a lot of times
book.
No,
I'm kidding. We're writing a book. I'm kidding.
No, a lot of the books I've been reading lately is because we have a guest that wrote a book. But Howard Behar, as Kaylee mentioned, the former president of Starbucks, he wrote a book called "It's Not About the Coffee." So it's a great leadership book, really. Yeah. And he's got a very kind of a servant leader, perspective, or the way he does leadership. So he talks about that they're in the business of serving people, not coffee. And so it's a great book because, one, you get a little insight into the early days of Starbucks, because he was there. Howard Schultz, the founder, brought him on when they only had 28 locations and brought him on to lead the international expansion. So, wow. And he was also chairman of the board. So a lot of great leadership lessons there. And, again, with a lot of analogies to coffee and Starbucks. So it's a fun read, and just great, kind of that servant leadership style. So it's a great read.
Awesome. I always write down all these books. So Atomic Habits and Not About the Coffee. So look at those guys too. And that's a wrap. Brett Snodgrass podcast. Thanks, Kay Lee. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate having you guys.
You're welcome, Brett. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for checking out the Brett Snodgrass channel. If you like this video, please slam on that like button. And if you really like it, then subscribe to our channel here. And remember to leave us a comment below, and I'm going to try my hardest to reply to all the comments. Thank you guys so much. This is why I do what I do. Every single week, I come out with content that focuses on success, freedom, and living out your purpose. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.